Alright, so here's a discussion I see quite a bit online, and I've seen it for years, so I want to throw my thoughts into it, and of course get your guys' comments in the comment section. This is in regards to Qui Gon being a gray Jedi for various reasons, but this one being one of the main ones that I see brought up quite a bit. So, Qui Gon used the Force in The Phantom Menace to alter the fate of the Chance Cube. This would have changed the course of history in Star Wars as we know it if the cube had landed on Anakin's mother, Shmi, rather than on Anakin. That means Qui Gon would have been able to free Shmi as a slave, but not Anakin, and we all know he wanted the Chosen One. Qui Gon couldn't take this chance, and so he used the Force to bend it to his will, landing the Chance Cube on freeing Anakin. So many fans over the years have thought this was more of a dark side decision. While many think it was a gray Jedi thing, we can all agree that this wasn't a 100% Jedi light side thing to do, as they don't offer a bet, then use the Force to win, regardless of the prize. So in this scenario, I think Qui Gon outweighed the good versus the bad. He knew that Watto had probably fixed the cube to land on whatever color he wanted, so he figured he would throw his own curveball into the mix too. There's no way that Watto would have just used a fair cube, and that thing was definitely rigged, and Qui Gon knew it. The second point I'd like to make is that he had met Anakin by accident, and he felt this was the will of the Force. And if you know anything about Qui Gon, you know that the guy was all about destiny and fate. He felt that everything happened for a reason, and it happened that certain way for a particular purpose. So if not for the ship breaking down and them crash landing on Tatooine, him going to Watto's junkyard shop of any other shop, he'd not have met Anakin. And meeting the boy with the Chosen One prophecy replaying in his head and the head of the Jedi, he knew that this was more important than just the morals of the Jedi High Council. He had to take matters into his own hands, and as the Force would have it, he, Qui-Gon Jinn, was the one to discover the boy, not anyone else. And for this reason, the Force chose him because it knew that he would do whatever needed to be done to free the boy and turn him into a Jedi. That was his sole purpose in life, and as we saw, he died to Maul shortly after discovering Anakin, thrusting him into Obi-Wan's misguided care. Now that's a different video I'd like to cover at a different time, how Obi-Wan really shouldn't have trained Anakin. It should have been someone else. Obi-Wan was nowhere near ready. I do blame a lot of Obi-Wan's failures as the core reasons why Anakin turned to the dark side. He just wasn't given enough proper parenting and guidance. Anakin was a very special case, and he had a lot of issues, and this was in part to being a slave for 9 years of his life, and then of course leaving his mother, who was still a slave, and then only to find that she died, when he kept trying to save her time and time again, but the Jedi just wouldn't have it. So while Qui-Gon Jinn using the Force to manipulate the bet and the Chance Cube wasn't really a move that, let's say, Mace Windu or Master Yoda would have necessarily done, it did combat the fact that Watto's cube itself was rigged. So of course Qui-Gon had to level the odds. Now Qui-Gon is my favorite Jedi of all time because of his basic ability to not be so dogmatic the way the Jedi were. He had more of a grounded belief in the will of the Force and the way of the Force, rather than being really caught up in politics or feeling very confined to one specific sect of the Force. And if you deviate at all by perhaps using some other Force abilities or thinking a different way, then that means you are no longer part of the Jedi, you are no longer part of the light side. And Qui-Gon didn't like this. He kind of danced to his own tune, but at the same time, he felt that it was always the right decision to be in the light side. That being said, there were different opinions when it came to the Jedi High Council. He felt taking matters into his own hands, like in this situation, was something that called for the Force to be used. I'm pretty sure if Yoda and Mace Windu or anyone else knew what Qui-Gon had done with the Chance Cube, they would have been very grumpy. But at the end of the day, Qui-Gon got what he wanted. He got to free Anakin, and in the end, he did bring balance to the Force. It just took a lot of death and turmoil to get there. Let me know what you guys think about Qui-Gon using the Force to alter the Chance Cube to his favor. What if he was the one to actually free Shmi and not Anakin? Would he have gone back and freed Anakin somehow? Now, he did try and free Shmi, and so did Padme. She actually sent handmaidens down to free her, but it just didn't happen. It wasn't possible. At the end of the day, the main reason is because Shmi had a massive bomb inside of her. And if she were to ever leave the planet, the proximity would go off and she would explode. This is something all slaves carried with them, sadly. And Anakin had his removed and deactivated upon being freed by Qui-Gon Jinn. Let me hear your thoughts down below in the comment section. Thanks for watching today's video. Check me out on Spotify for daily episodes, and I'll see you all in the next episode on Star Wars Theory. Until then, my fellow Jedi and Sith friends, remember, the Force will be with you, always. As we know, Order 66 was the order given by Emperor Palpatine just after the death of Mace Windu, and the transformation of Anakin into Darth Vader. The order was programmed into the clones' heads by way of an inhibitor chip, which controlled their minds to take out the Jedi and serve the Chancellor. The rest of the events that led from this are what we know today. But what if we go into another timeline, an alternate universe, and one that I think makes much more sense in some ways? What if Order 66 failed? Jedi have decades of training, mastering the Force above all else. Their first and foremost abilities were to be able to sense their surroundings and feel any threats, such as when Anakin and Obi-Wan could even feel the Kuhans that attempted to poison Padme. The Jedi not being able to sense the complete 180 turn of the clones, raising their guns at them and firing, would have been enough of a shift in the Force, just as Yoda had felt, in order for them to escape, or to have an advantage to fight back harder. The Jedi Temple events, however, would continue to play out the way they did, as Anakin was too powerful for any Jedi in the Temple. He would then go to Mustafar as ordered, while the rest of the clones would continue to take out the Jedi, slowly being killed one by one by more advancing Jedi. Plo Koon would still be alive, so would Sakura, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Sindralig, and the list goes on. Of course, not every Jedi would live. The clones were a formidable force. However, the more powerful and more Force-attuned ones would sense the matter immediately. After Anakin was ordered to Mustafar by Palpatine, Yoda would meet Obi-Wan at the raided Jedi Temple, and they would send a beacon out to all of the survivors of Order 66, where we would essentially see almost the entire Jedi Council returning, with the exception of Anakin Skywalker, of course, who is now Darth Vader. We have to remember this doesn't give Palpatine enough time to leave the city, as all of these events took only a few hours at the most to execute. He wouldn't have heard back from the commanders because 1, they'd all be dead, and 2, he'd assumed they were all still carrying out orders. Yoda would send Obi-Wan and Plo Koon to Mustafar to seize and capture Anakin to be tried in the Galactic Court, while he would take Ki-Adi-Mundi, Sindralig, and Aayla Secura to confront the Emperor, while the remaining Jedi would dissipate to hunt down as many clones as they